Okay, so get these. We're going deep today into some pretty wild stuff. UFO crashes, like mysterious materials and mass sightings, the kind of stuff that's been puzzling people for decades. We've got a whole pile of research here, witness accounts, even some serious scientific analysis to get through. So, ready to dive in.
Oh, absolutely. Sounds like we've got our work cut out for us.
We do. We're going to
Yeah.
be like proper deep divers here, looking
Hmm.
at all sides of the story, really critical eye, and we're going to kick things off with what could be like actual physical evidence from a UFO crash. Way back in 1977 in Council Bluffs, Iowa, two people saw something weird fall out of the sky.
Yeah.
And they went to check it out and found, get this, what they described as molten lava just sitting there in a park.
That's right. And this lava, it's actually called slag. It was some pretty strange stuff. Hard, partially magnetic, definitely not something you'd just, stumble across in a park.
No, not at all. And to make things even more interesting, a railroad worker, a guy named Daryl, he actually came forward and said he was responsible for it, claimed it was all a prank, that he used a thermite welding kit.
Now, thermite, it's a mix of metal powder and metal oxide. When it ignites, it creates an incredibly intense, high-temperature reaction. It's used for welding, but it's not exactly something you can just pick up at the corner store. You need some serious know-how to get your hands on it, and even more to set it off.
So could Daryl's story actually be true? Like, what are the chances he could really pull something like that off?
Well, to figure that out, we got to understand how thermite actually works, right? The reaction, it creates molten iron as a byproduct, and that could explain that slag-like material. However, there are some pretty big holes in Daryl's story. First off, getting and igniting thermite, it's not exactly a walk in the park. You need the right stuff, and you got to know what you're doing. And second, the witnesses described a lot of this molten material, way more than your average thermite welding kit could produce.
So to test Daryl's claim, a team of explosives experts down in Texas, they actually recreated a thermite welder, the kind a railroad worker might use. They even went all out, replicated those winter conditions, ice and everything, just like the original incident.
Yeah, they used 5 pounds of thermite. 5 pounds. Packed it into a container, pointed it up, to simulate that plume the witnesses described. They wanted to see if they could replicate the visual and the material, see if it matched.
Okay, so what happened? Did the experiment back up Daryl's story? The thermite prank theory?
Not really. The explosion did create sparks. There was a smoke plume about 20 feet high, but the slag, nowhere near what they found at Council Bluffs. Basically, the experiment showed that a normal thermite welder couldn't have done what the witnesses described.
Okay, so that kind of throws a wrench in the hoax explanation, right? But we still don't know what this weird material actually is.
Yeah.
And that's where Stanford professor Gary Nolan comes in. He got a big chunk of that Council Bluffs slag and analyzed it, trying to figure out where it came from.
Yeah, and his findings were, well, pretty groundbreaking. The main stuff in there: titanium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, and iron. But get this, it wasn't mixed evenly. That suggests it was deliberate. Maybe even intelligently controlled, not just some random natural thing.
Interesting. So what does that tell us about where this stuff might have come from?
Well, it's important to remember that even, let's say, even advanced civilizations, if they're out there, they might still use materials we have here on Earth. Just because something's, super advanced doesn't mean it's made of completely exotic elements. That's where Dr. Nolan's unobtainium theory comes in. He's saying that what seems like magic to us could be everyday stuff for a more advanced civilization. They're basic building blocks. They could be materials we haven't even discovered or figured out yet.
So we could be looking at something both familiar and completely alien at the same time. It's like finding an ancient, perfectly made stone tool. The material itself, stone, it's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But the skill, the tech behind it, that tells a whole different story.
Exactly. And with that Council Bluffs material, that uneven mixing, it suggests a level of control, a precision that's beyond anything we can do right now.
Okay, but now, this is where it gets really wild. Dr. Nolan, he found something else that blows the whole thermite theory out of the water.
Right. Remember that metal oxide, a key part of thermite? Well, there should have been aluminum oxide if thermite was used. But Dr. Nolan, he didn't find any, none at all.
Whoa, wait, so if it wasn't thermite, then what could have created this stuff, and how did it, seemingly fall from the sky?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Dr. Nolan even suggested, and this is pretty out there, that it could have been ejected from a craft. Maybe some process went wrong, like an emergency jettison.
Okay, so we've got this unexplained material, maybe ejected from some kind of craft, potentially belonging to, well, to a civilization with technology beyond our wildest dreams. It's like something straight out of science fiction. But is there anything else, any other evidence that might support this?
Well, we have physical evidence, right? But there's another kind of evidence that can be just as strong: mass sightings. Imagine hundreds, thousands of people all seeing something incredible in the sky at the same time.
Oh, yeah, like that famous case in Florence, Italy back in '54. During a soccer match, players, spectators, everybody saw these weird objects just hovering over the stadium.
Exactly. And then there was that incredible case in Belgium between 89 and 90. Thousands of people all over the country reported seeing this huge, silent, triangular thing in the sky. It was even chased by F-16s for like an hour.
Yeah, and those mass sightings, they're really important because you
Yeah.
can't just dismiss them as people misinterpreting things or making stuff up. And maybe the most well-known mass sighting of all time, you guessed it, the Phoenix Lights. Back in 1997, thousands of people in Phoenix, Arizona, they saw this giant, silent, V-shaped, or some said boomerang-shaped, craft with light just gliding across the sky. This wasn't just a few quick glimpses. It went on for hours. People from all walks of life, they all saw the same thing.
And there have been attempts to explain it away as flares or weather or something, but those explanations, they just don't line up with the detailed reports and the photos and videos. It just doesn't add up.
Yeah, the sheer scale of it, the Phoenix Lights, and no believable explanation. It makes it one of the most compelling UFO cases ever. It really
Yeah.
makes you think what was going on that night.
Absolutely. And if the Phoenix Lights were real, a genuine UFO, as many people believe, it brings up some big questions. What kind of technology could allow something to fly so silently, so effortlessly, over such a huge area? Why has there never been a clear, honest explanation from official sources? And could they be trying to hide the truth about what happened that night?
So many questions, so few answers. But we're not giving up. We're going to
Oh.
keep digging, keep looking at the evidence, keep asking those tough questions. We're going to dive even deeper into the Phoenix Lights, talk to witnesses, talk to experts, try to piece together what really happened up there in Arizona that night.
It's a fascinating puzzle, and I can't wait to see where this deep dive takes us.
Me too. Okay, so we're back and ready to really dig into the Phoenix Lights. And this wasn't just a one-night thing, you know. There seems to be like a pattern of weird stuff going on up there in the skies above Phoenix, even more recently.
Yeah, that's important to remember. I mean, the 1997 event, that's the big one. Everyone knows it. But there have been tons of reports of, you know, unusual stuff in the sky there before and after the Phoenix Lights.
Right. So we talked to this guy, Tom King. He's a dedicated sky watcher, spends a lot of time and money keeping an eye on the skies over Phoenix. And he's got some amazing footage, strange orbs doing things that seem impossible. We're talking crazy speeds, sudden changes in direction, and no visible way they're being propelled, you know?
Tom's footage, it's really interesting because it shows so many of those classic, like, UFO things.
Yeah.
The things he's captured, they're doing stuff way beyond any tech we have now, airplanes or anything else.
And Tom's not just some guy with a phone camera either. He's got a whole setup, multiple 4K cameras, an all-sky camera that captures, like, everything 360 degrees. He even has a UFO lab, that's what he calls it, where he analyzes all this footage.
Yeah, I mean, his commitment to documenting all this, it shows you how many people are out there taking these sightings seriously. They're actively trying to gather evidence. It's like citizen science.
Totally. And it's not just the recent stuff either. Tom, he actually saw the Phoenix Lights himself back in '97. He told us about it, seeing a line of lights, in formation, moving silently, no effort, just totally bizarre.
And what's really strange is that even with an event as big as the Phoenix Lights and all these reports coming in from the area, there's been practically no official acknowledgement, no investigation, nothing. Tom told us he tried to get info from the FAA, air traffic control, about radar data from that night, and just silence.
It's like they're deliberately ignoring it, you know? Yeah.
It's that lack of transparency. It happens all the time with these UFO cases. It's one of the most frustrating things for researchers and witnesses. And it's like that AARO report, remember? Supposed to clear things up about UAPs, but it was just dismissive, no real information.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of aviation experts, we talked to this guy, Greg, a veteran pilot. I mean, this guy's done it all, flew helicopters in Vietnam, F-15s in the Air Force, even commercial airliners. And he saw the Phoenix Lights from the ground.
Greg's testimony is it's so important because he knows aviation inside and out. He can identify aircraft. He knows what all sorts of stuff looks like in the sky. And what he saw that night, he said it was unlike anything he'd ever seen before.
Yeah, he described it like a silent formation of lights, no anti-collision lights, no strobes, no engine noise, no exhaust plumes, nothing. All those things, they don't fit with flares, regular aircraft, any tech we know of.
And get this, to debunk that flare theory, Greg, he actually deployed flares himself, back in Vietnam and during training. He knows exactly what they look like, how they act, and he was adamant the Phoenix lights were not flares. No way.
His observations, they're incredibly detailed, and they match up with what other witnesses have said. He even mentioned that the object, it seemed to, like, block out the stars that moved overhead, which would mean it was huge.
It's hard to dismiss someone like Greg with his experience, his credibility, and it's even more compelling when you consider that at first he didn't want to talk about it. He was worried about his career. But in the end, he felt like the truth needed to come out, so he decided to speak out.
Yeah, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? The fact that he was willing to come forward, it tells you how real this event was, how much it affected him. Okay, but now the story gets even weirder because we got to talk about the possibility of missing footage, maybe even a cover-up.
Right. Peter Davenport, the director of the National UFO Reporting Center, he told us this really chilling story. The night of the Phoenix Lights, he gets a call from an airman at Luke Air Force Base. This airman says he was part of an intercept, an unknown object over Camelback Mountain. And then he's ordered to keep quiet about it.
Wait, an intercept. So they sent military aircraft to check out this thing. And they told him to shut up about it. That's messed up. It makes you really question what's going on. Are they hiding something?
Absolutely. And the airman, he went on to say that he was ordered to get videotapes, 3 of them, from the aircraft, probably the line camera footage, and he had to deliver them to this Air Force executive jet. And then the jet took off. Who knows where it went?
So there could be military and camera footage of this thing, the Phoenix Lights object, captured during an actual intercept.
Yeah.
That's insane. Why haven't we seen this footage? Why hasn't AARO, the government's own UFO office, why haven't they said anything about it?
It's a huge revelation, and it really throws that whole official story about the Phoenix Lights into question. If this footage exists, it could be the best evidence we have that UFOs are real. And the fact that it seems to be hidden, well, it makes you wonder what else they're not telling us.
What are they so afraid of? It's frustrating, sure, but it also makes this whole investigation, this deep dive, even more important. By looking into these cases, talking to people, examining the evidence, we're shining a light on something that some people want to keep secret.
That's right. We're fighting back against the secrecy, the lies, and the people who just dismiss this stuff. We've been doing it for decades.
And we're doing it for you guys, our listeners. You deserve to know what's going on, even if it's weird and scary.
These people, Peter Davenport, that airman, they're brave, coming forward, telling us what they know, even though it could hurt their careers, their reputations. It gives me hope, that we can finally break through all the secrecy and find out the truth.
Their stories and the things people like Tom King and Greg have told us, they all point to something incredible happening up there. And as we keep exploring the Phoenix Lights, we're going to hear from even more people with stories that'll challenge everything you thought you knew.
Yeah, it's true. And up next, we're going to talk to one of those witnesses. His name's Clive Christopher. He worked at Sky Harbor Airport during the Phoenix Lights. And his story, it adds a whole other layer of mystery to this thing.
Yeah, Clive's perspective, it's unique. He was right there at the airport, so he saw what was going on the ground that night.
His account is, well, it's full of weird details, things that make you think, like maybe what happened that night was a lot bigger than they're letting on.
It seems like the more we learn about the Phoenix Lights, the more questions pop up. But every new piece of information, every new witness, it brings us closer to the truth. Let's hear what Clive has to say. Okay, so last we were about to hear from Clive Christopher, the guy who worked at Sky Harbor Airport during the Phoenix Lights. What did he actually see that night?
So Clive, he was on a bus leaving the airport, and he and some other passengers, even the bus driver, they all saw this formation of 5 lights moving across the sky. And get this, they were so curious, they actually stopped the bus to get a better look.
Wait, they stopped the bus to watch these lights? Wow, that's something. What did they look like, these lights?
Clive said they were bright white lights in a clear pattern, and they moved slowly, silently, no engines or anything, no sound at all. He watched them cross right over Terminal 3, then they kept heading south.
Terminal 3, that's where most of the commercial flights come and go, right? Were there any planes, like, taking off or landing when this was happening?
That's what makes Clive's story so strange. He specifically remembers there weren't any planes coming in or going out. It was like all the air traffic just stopped while this thing was passing overhead.
That's kind of creepy, you know? This huge unknown thing flying right over a major airport, maybe even stopping air traffic, and nobody saying anything about it officially.
Right. And it gets even weirder. Clive said he went to work the next day and his boss actually warned him, told him to be careful not to get into any trouble. It was like a subtle warning, but still, it made him think something was up, that people were being told to keep quiet.
Man, that's spooky. Like something out of like a spy movie or something. Did anything else happen to him?
Yeah.
Any more weird stuff after that night?
He believes, and this is pretty heavy, that there were federal agents at the airport in the months after the Phoenix lights. He thinks they were taking videos, other evidence, anything related to the event.
Hold on. So not only was there no investigation, but they might have been actively trying to get rid of evidence and silence people.
That's what it sounds like, doesn't it? It adds to that whole cover-up theory. What were they so afraid of people finding out?
So where does this all leave us? We've got this weird material, science can't explain it, a mass sighting thousands of people saw, these ongoing reports of strange stuff in the skies over Phoenix, maybe even a military intercept, and now this, people saying the government's covering it all up. It's a lot to take in.
It really is a lot to think about. We've looked at physical evidence, heard from witnesses, all kinds of people, and explored this idea that they're hiding information. And it all points to something big, something happening up there that changes how we see the world.
I'm still thinking about that on camera footage, from that possible military intercept. If we could see that, it could change
I
everything.
know, right? It could be the answer to the whole Phoenix Lights mystery, but it's locked away somewhere, hidden. And that just makes you wonder why. What don't they want us to see?
It's maddening. But it also makes everything we're doing here, this whole deep dive, even more important.
Yeah.
By digging into these cases, talking to people, looking at the evidence, we're bringing something into the light that some people want to keep buried in the dark.
We're fighting back against the secrecy, the lies, all the people who just dismiss this stuff. And we've been doing it for a long time.
But we're doing it for you, the listeners.
Yeah.
You deserve to know the truth, no matter how weird or scary it might be.
This whole deep dive, it's been a journey, hasn't it? We've learned so much, faced some tough questions, and met some incredible people who were brave enough to share their stories with us.
It's been honestly mind-blowing.
Mm.
And I think this is just the beginning. The more we look, the more we realize how much we don't know.
That's the amazing thing about exploring, isn't it? It's about the unknown, questioning what you thought you knew, being open to the possibility that there's so much more to the universe than we can even imagine.
So what do we want our listeners to take away from all this? What's the big message after this deep dive?
I think the most important thing is to keep an open mind. Don't just dismiss things because they sound strange or challenge what you believe. The universe is full of mysteries, and the answers might be closer than we think.
That's right. Pay attention to the evidence, listen to the people who've seen things, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to dig deeper.
And remember, the truth is out there, waiting to be found.
Thanks for joining us on this amazing deep dive. We'll see you next time, and until then, keep looking up.